Hello, this is Stephen Allen. Yes, we are back with another Green Hornet 66 episode review. Today, we'll be reviewing the episode Alias the Scarf. So without any further ado, let's hop straight into this review. We begin this episode at night time, and I love the atmosphere with all this fog. It kind of reminds me of one of those like horror films that that are set in like the late Victorian times. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we find ourselves at a wax museum. Specifically Williams Wax Museum, where they're unveiling a new attraction, the actual wax-like figure of the Green Hornet and Kato, to be a part of their bit of the exhibit known as the Chamber of Evils. Now, the Chamber of Evils is essentially a section within the museum that houses some of the most notorious, criminals within the city. And essentially, it's just, like a big rogues gallery. Mike Axford is there to help, for reporting on the incident, because it's going to be a part of their next article. And in comes the group of tourists who are, to see all these figures. And some of them are basically people who have long since passed, such as a colonel, who I'm presuming, did some very horrible things. Jimmy the Gun, a notorious gangster for the notorious Yellow Gang, and so on and so forth. There's been essentially, the Wax Museum houses some of the most infamous names within the city's history, led by James Rancourt, a noted historian and knows all about it. But he turns to one of the most prized and what was considered to be the star attraction to the exhibit long before they did with the Green Hornet. A notorious criminal known as simply the Scarf, real name unknown, and rather like the others who have long since passed away, the Scarf just simply vanished. And that's kind of the mystery surrounding him. He vanished to not, be seen again. He's got his name, the Scarf, because the way he killed people, by strangling them with a scarf. And that is kind of interesting. The city's had notorious criminals way before the Green Hornet time, almost on celebrity status. And I like the premise that there was a notorious name that rocked the city way before the Green Hornet ever appeared. It's really interesting stuff. And that's where we kind of end, at least a little bit of the beginning part. Eventually, they close the exhibit, and basically Mr. Rancourt wants to go and essentially revise some notes for their new attraction, the Green Hornet, which they've just shown a bit, and, just wants to know a bit more. Whilst his, partner, or, wants to go to, or partner, you would say, wants to go to, his wax room and do some cleaning to clean up the room, and he will be back soon. Just as everyone is admiring the likeness of the Green Hornet and Kato, especially Mike Axford, noticing it like it's so lifelike, we see that the partner is back in the back room fixing up on the waxes, only to eventually come out of nowhere and get strangled by a masked figure. He is strangled to death with a white scarf. The figure then puts back on this white scarf and simply walks away through the exhibit, only to walk past to the sign of, where the exhibit where the scarf is, and noticing the wax figure isn't there, implicating that the partner was strangled by the wax figure of the Scarf himself. And that's where we end the episode. I love how it entices me in. We get to know a little bit about the history, how there's these notorious villains, that were big names. And I also like the mystery. How is this happening? Why is it occurring? And it makes me want to know more about the Scarf, because very little about him is known. So I love that they've basically introduced us to. And again, the atmosphere in the beginning, before we got into the museum, with the fog and all that, is a really great way of enticing me into the episode. After the opening credits, we get back to where we left off, where we see essentially this waxed figure of the Scarf walking around. What I love about it is that we don't see his face, but it's almost constantly hidden in view, but the way he's walking is very stiff, which can be implicated in many ways, because it's a wax figure, maybe robot, I don't know, but a lot of questions are definitely being raised, and I love that about it. Eventually, the Scarf eventually comes across a homeless man and begins to strangle him. Strangle him to death, and basically continues to walk his merry long, where he stumbles across, where a witness happens to come and stumble across him, and basically almost, strangles her, but she quickly makes a run for it. She then goes to the Daily Sentinel, sorry, about to say Daily Bugle, but the Daily Sentinel, and explains everything to Britt Reed and Mike Axford. And it tries to describe the stranger as looking very funny, very stiff, and his face almost looked ghastly. I also liked that, she really can't fully explain what it is. Maybe wax, but because of the fog, is a little bit obscure, but she could tell that, it was kind of made wax. Mike Axford asks, if it, did it look like wax? He said, yeah. And again, this is playing into, as they are finding a little bit more about, that the scarf has kind of made a return. And, and this is kind of worrying them. They take her away to, write more of the story down, because they're a newspaper. But, Britt Reed can't get over the fact, is it possible, it's impossible, that this, how a wax figure comes to life and starts killing. However, Mike does say that the partner, Peter, is, he's not given much of a chance to live. And he was, just kind of lucky. I think if I recall correctly, he did not really, he's still alive, but just barely. And again, they got his statement. However, they do question if she could be telling, the truth, but they partly don't believe that no one can make up a story like that. As it's, as it just, just sounds very, unreal. Eventually, Casey comes in, and basically how a policeman spotted a bearded man, walking. They tried to catch him, but lost him in the fog. I love how the fog atmosphere is really contributing to the episode. And again, they note that someone's been strangled. The policemen are still searching for this masked figure, and as they are, just doing their usual patrolling, trying to find something, they come across the scarf, who tries to strangle basically a pedestrian who is just sitting waiting for the bus, kind of nosing off. Just as he begins to strangle, the policemen roll up and begin to chase the scarf, resulting in someone firing off a shotgun, wounding the suspect, but he continues to wander and limp along. They note that they've shot him, but but he basically got away. We then cut back to Britt Reed's place, where Frank Scanlon, not Mike Axford, and Kato are basically doing more research on the scarf, looking at notes, prior information. They get notified that the policeman had a run-in with the scarf getting shot, but again, lost him in the fog. Realizing there's really little to go on, and trying to ease the panic, as now there's rumors that there's a wax figure running around causing havoc, believing that the scarf has come to life almost mystically. They realize they've got to put a stop to this before it gets more out of hand. As they're looking more on the scarf's background, with little to no luck, to hopefully find a reason why. They even try to ask, why was Peter, the first victim, targeted, at the beginning of the episode. They think that might put him in the right direction. They ask for the condition of, Peter, his condition, and I think he died. Died of something, and this pretty much puts him back at square one. They then go back to the museum to investigate further, where they find that the wax figure of the scarf has suddenly returned. They begin looking at the wax figure and notice that there is some blood, specifically on the scarf, and possibly from the bullet, and the clothes are damp. Kato then ponders that there are many legendary evils, that come back and supposedly come possess things. So Kato's kind of thinking, could the scarf's evil spirit possibly have come back and possessed the wax figure? And it leaves on a very, very cliffhanger ending. Again, I really like with what they're going for here. with this whole mystery angle, but also very dark moments, which again just feels so natural. They then go investigate further, where they go into the wax room, where they notice a case. They open it up and realize that it's controlling the wax figure, kind of. And we come across an old manuscript of the scarf, who was written by James Rancourt, who of course was that guide going throughout the whole thing, and he intended to have it published. He was Peter's partner, and often research on the lecture tours. Again, we know from the beginning of the episode. And as they're going through, the manuscript, or basically the life story, they notice that there's a girl named Rena Rose, who was a burlesque queen that the scarf used to date back in the day. And they realize that maybe, find where she works. Basically, she's a stripper from the old days, and where she works, seeing as she could shed some more light. Britt manages to track down her last location, her known location, and has a conversation, a talk with her to get more information. But she was head over heels in love with the scarf, and even though she knew about the scarf's reputation of being a notorious killer, for her, he was nothing but a gentleman, and all they did was talk. Again, but I should say, Britt doesn't come to her. The Green Hornet does. Yes, the Green Hornet is getting further into this investigation, and I do like how she's not that fully intimidated, because she's seen another notorious theatrical criminal before. The Green Hornet is nothing but. She then tells how, at the end of one of her shows, performances, whatever, they had one final talk, where they would talk one last time, and said how he would leave to find immortality, and he left her behind. She's very upset about it, and has never really spoken to him again. I still like how after all these years, she's still in love with him despite all the criminal killings that he does. I like how the Green Hornet says, are you seriously in love with the man despite all the crimes that he's done? I kind of find that hypocritical, because hello, the Green Hornet's supposed to have the same reputation, and how many women have fallen head over heels for you? That's kind of hypocritical, but then again, Green Hornet's not a real criminal. He's a person who pretends to be a criminal, but is actually a hero. So I do kind of like how that kind of incident. Anyway, back at the Daily Sentinel, Britt Reed calls James to come and basically work with him to help uncover more about, the scarf, and find more information about him. But it's clear he's trying to entice him in for some reason, and essentially, he knows something's up. Anyway, James Rancourt goes back to the Wax Museum, and as he gets back, he notices that same, that stripper, Miss Rose, is also there, and, it's essentially set up a candlelight dinner, to wait for the scarf to come back. As she's hearing the rumors that the scarf is actually back, she's waiting for the wax figure to come to life, clearly to reunite with her long-lost love. And I do love this, as she's staring, she has to come to the realization that really, he's just wax. She's devastated. And James is put off about it too. And is getting a little uncomfortable, a little upset. And this is the scene where the twist comes in. How, and he basically goes on this kind of rant, well, I should say monologue, how sometimes being remembered is just as part as being is more important to being in part of immortality. And part of the many, many, many criminals that have come, are best remembered in history, by the history to be forever remembered. And this is where the twist comes in. She comes to the realization that James himself is the scarf. That's right, the tour guide is actually the scarf. And he's done all these killings again because of the Green Hornet. You see, the Green Hornet has now taken the scarf's place of being, the most feared man in the city. The scarf deserves that reputation. And just as she is beginning to realize that he is the scarf after, he says her name. She never once told the tour guide her name. This is where she puts the pieces together, and basically, in a few more weeks, the scarf will be remembered, and she will be the last victim in that line. And just as he's about to kill her, the Green Hornet and Kato come in. Turning out they were actually the wax figures that have been standing there. And just as he's breaking down, saying only the scarf can be immortal, only the scarf, he gets into a confrontation only to be knocked out. The scarf is taken down for good. The scarf is then sent to Frank Scanner's office, where he's basically having, kind of being prosecuted. He accepts all responsibility, and, is going to be sent to prison. He then asks if she was there, but they said they found no woman there. What he's talking about. As he's taken away, he kind of comes to the realization maybe he might have dreamed up the whole thing or whatever, and the cops take him away. Just as we see from the other side of the mirror, because there's a two-way mirror, Britt Reed and Mike Axford are looking in on the whole thing, and basically Mike tells Reed that as the police has ransacked the whole museum, they found the Green Hornet's actual wax figures being found in a room. And this kind of proposes the question to them, if the fact of the Green Hornet and Kato's wax figures actually came to life, or was the Green Hornet and Kato actually there? We end the episode there, and I do like this sort of mystery tone that, hinting that maybe we may have not seen the last of the scarf. He may make a comeback. The cast here is kind of substandard. Green Hornet, again, being the lead. I am really upset that we're not seeing much of Kato doing much, except for maybe spouting a few lines here or so, but I feel like he should maybe have taken more of the lead in this episode this time around. Also, Frank Scanlon got a lot more to do, but Mike Axford is getting pushed more and more to the side with these few episodes, and honestly, we won't see him do much in the next 3 episodes to come. And Casey barely does anything. It's kind of upsetting that some of these, characters don't get much to do in this episode. But I do absolutely love the antagonist we have for this episode. The Scarf himself. The Scarf, played by a beloved horror actor known for horror roles in that, or at least very morbid stuff, is John Carradine. Probably butchering that name. Now, the Scarf, real name James Rancott, is a unique character in the Green Hornet Rogues Gallery. Again, we've established the Green Hornet going up against a bunch of gangsters and crooked businessmen. But again, the show did occasionally give us some villains, and I love the Scarf. A villain before the Green Hornet's time. A villain who, well, a notorious murderer, I would say even on borderline serial killer, going around killing people strangling people to death with his choice with, of course, his scarf, hence how he got his name. I also love the motivation here. The Scarf comes back out of retirement to have the Scarf become big in the public eye again, because the Green Hornet's now because there's an exhibit with the Green Hornet now taking over as being the most prized or infamous name within, the museum. Again, the Scarf is such a unique villain to me, and I would have loved, if they got a season 2, for the Scarf to naturally come back to be, a constant thorn on the Green Hornet's side. Why? Because he doesn't want to be forgotten. He wants to be remembered. He wants to prove that the Scarf is a truer threat, and I could kind of like that. The Green Hornet is going up against a person before his time, someone with a lot of old tricks, and the Green Hornet trying to compensate with newer tricks. I also love that kind of concept there. Basically, the Scarf just wants to be remembered. He wants to forever be considered immortal. I love the character. I love the design. I also like some of the mystery. Again, he uses a wax figure controlled remotely to constantly walk around and do the killing for him now, considering he's old. And plus, we were kind of hinted at he could have been the Scarf in the beginning of the episode, how he admired the Scarf so much, and how, again, because they've never, the Scarf face is such a mystery, they just use some random face, but the face is eerily similar to him. Again, this is I love this character. I'm really upset he never came back. Alias the Scarf for me is another great episode. I love the fog atmosphere they go for. It kind of reminds me of, A House of Wax, that old Vincent Price horror film. I love the mystery angle, the dark tone. Again, it just feels so much darker, like a crime noir thing they're going for. The villain is very memorable and unique, and I'll consider that this might have been one of the last good episodes of the series. you know, really great episodes, while the others ranked from mediocre to plain okay or good. But this is one of the last great ones, and I definitely have a huge fondness for this one. And when I get around to a top 10 or a top 20 Green Hornet episode list, this one will definitely be on the list. Where? Well, we'll find out when we do that list, or we do that video. And there we have it. That was Alias the Scarf. A really great Green Hornet episode. If you haven't seen it, give it a look. You will enjoy it. I love the dark tone that it went for, and almost borderline on horror. So join us next time. We'll review the next Green Hornet episode. But until then, this has been the Steven Hour. And ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.